my heart is just massacred. Fucking book. Hey friends, it is Wednesday the 4th of April. It is quite late. It is 11:05. I've just come back tonight from staying at my girl Erinna's house for the last week. If my vlog of seeing her is up already, I'll link it. This is my reading vlog for Call Me By Your Name. I'm so excited. I wanted to do a reading vlog for this book because look at it already. I'm gonna have a lot of thoughts and feelings. I absolutely adored the movie. I'm so excited to read the book and experience all the 10 times more feelings that happen and just get an in-depth knowledge into the story. So I'm so excited. I did read a little bit, as I mentioned, on the plane, but I didn't want to film the play-by-play updates, one because actually no one was sitting next to me, but everyone was really loud, and I thought I'll just wait till I get home. So I'm going to do my reading. So I'm going to update you guys all these little tabs, and then I'm going to keep reading. So let's read through what I've already read, share my thoughts, and then we will continue in the journey. The first thing that I tagged was, "It's the first thing I remember about him, and I can hear it still today. Later." I already love how he's written this book. I shut my eyes, say the word, and I'm back in Italy. So many years ago. Walking down the tree-lined driveway, watching him step out of the cab. I just love that later because, I remember obviously in the movie he gets really annoyed about it, and Timothy does that so well in the movie. So I'm just like, it's so good that it's just whoa, it's the first thing that's mentioned in the movie, in the book. And I love how he's thinking of when he started to love him. It's maybe it started soon after his arrival, during one of those grinding lunches when he sat next to me, and it finally dawned on me that, despite a light tan acquired during his brief stay in Sicily earlier that summer, the colour on the palms of his hands was the same as the pale soft skin of his soles, of his throat, of the bottom of his forearms, which hadn't really been exposed too much. Almost light pink, glistening and smooth as the underside of a lizard's belly. Private, chaste, unfledged, like blush on an athlete's face or an instance of dawn on a stormy night. I love this line. It told me things about him I never knew to ask. Did he want to see them? Later, maybe. Polite indifference, as if he'd spotted my misplaced zeal to play up to him and was summarily pushing me away. But it stung me. What did one do around here? Nothing. Wait for summer to end. What did one do in winter then? I smiled at the answer I was about to give. He got the gist of and said, "Don't tell me. Wait for summer to come, right?" I liked having my mind read. He'd pick up on dinner drudgery sooner than those before him. I realised that I needed to perform some clever backpedaling and let him know that my real interest lay right alongside his. What unsettled me, though, was not the fancy footwork needed to redeem myself. It was the welcome misgivings with which it finally dawned on me, both then and during our casual conversation by the train tracks, that I had all along, without seeming to, without even admitting it, already been trying and failing to win him over. I'm going to read out a pretty long part here, but it's just good already, and I just love it so much. But it might have started way later than I think, without my noticing at all. You see someone. I don't even know when my camera cut out because it's fucking shit house. Why the fuck did it just end? Again, it's done that so many times before. So I'm just going to start somewhere in the middle just in case. And before you're even aware of a presence or of something troubling you, the 6 weeks that were offered to you have almost passed, and he's either already gone or just about to leave. And you're basically scrambling to come to terms with something, which unbeknownst to you has been brewing for weeks under your very nose, and bears all the symptoms of what you're forced to call I want. How couldn't I have known, you ask? I know desire when I see it, and yet this time it slipped by completely. I was going for the devious smile that would suddenly light up his face each time he'd read my mind, when all I really wanted was skin. Just skin. I like what he says about being 17 and having no one listen to him, even though I'm 24 and I still feel like no one listens to me. I was 17 that year, and being the youngest at the table and the least likely to be listened to, I had developed the habit of smuggling as much information into the fewest possible words. I became aware of the keenest glance coming from my left. It thrilled me and flattered me. He was obviously interested. He liked me. It hadn't been as difficult as all that then. But when, after taking my time, I finally turned to him and turned to face him and taking his glance, I met a cold and icy glare, something at once hostile and vitrified that bordered on cruelty. It undid me completely. What had I done to deserve this? I just wanted him to be kind to me again, to laugh with me as he had done just days earlier on the abandoned train tracks. It aided the pain, the stoking, the thrill of someone new, the promise of so much bliss hovering a fingertip away, the fumbling around people I actually really love this part. The fumbling around people I might misread and don't want to lose and must second guess at every turn, the desperate cunning I bring to everyone I want and crave to be wandered by. The screens I put up as though between me and the world there were not just one but layers of rice paper sliding doors. The urge to scramble and unscramble what was never really coded in the first place. All these started the summer Oliver came into our house. They are embossed on every song that was a hit that summer, in every novel I read during and after his stay, on anything from the smell of rosemary on hot days to the frantic rattle of cicadas in the afternoon. Smells and sounds I'd grown up with and known every year of my life until then, but had suddenly turned on me and acquired an inflection forever coloured by the events of that summer. Oh, yes, I love it. I need to post that one on Instagram. I love this part in the movie, and like it's literally word for word in the book, which obviously it won best adaptation, so I'm not surprised. But anyway. Don't bother explaining, just play it again. But I thought you hated it. Hated it? Whatever gave you that idea? Just play it, will you? The same one. You changed it. It's not the same. What did you do to it? I just played it the way Litz would have played it had he jimmied around with it. Just play it again, please. I can't believe you changed it again. Well, not by much. This is how Busoni would have played it if he had altered Litz's version. Can't you just play it back the way Bach wrote it? But Bach never wrote it for the guitar. I knew exactly what phrase in the piece must have stirred him the first time, and each time I played it, I was sending it to him as a little gift, because it really was dedicated to him, as a token of something very beautiful in me that would take no genius to figure out, and that urged me to throw in extended cadenza just for him. We were, and he must have recognized the silence long before I did, flirting. Later that evening I wrote in my diary, I was exaggerating when I said you hated the piece. What I meant to say was, I thought you hated me. I was hoping you'd persuade me of the opposite, and you did for a while. Why won't I believe it tomorrow morning? P.S. We are not written for one instrument alone. I am not, neither are you. I just want to read you guys this whole book. It's just so good. And I'm only not even 50 pages in. Then came that July Sunday afternoon when our houses suddenly emptied and we were the only ones there, and fire tore through my guts. Because fire was the first and easiest word that came to me later that same evening when I tried to make some sense of it in my diary. I waited and waited in my room, pinioned to my bed in a trance-like state of terror and anticipation. And basically he just says he's got this desire running through him, he just explains it much better than I can. Like the fire of cluster bombs that suck up the oxygen around them and leave you panting because you've been kicked in the gut and a vacuum has ripped up every living lung tissue and dried up your mouth, and you hope nobody speaks because you can't talk, and you pray no one asks you to move because your heart is clogged and beats so fast it would soon spit out in shards of glass and let anything else flow through its narrow chambers. Fire like a fear, like panic, like 1 minute of this and I'll die if he doesn't knock at my door. But I'd sooner he'd never knock than knock now. I had learned to leave my French windows ajar and lie on my bed wearing only my bathing suit. My entire body although feeling fire like a pleading that says, please, please tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I've imagined all of this. Because it can't possibly be true for you as well. And if it is true for you, then you're the cruelest man alive. The afternoon he did finally walk into my room without knocking, as if summoned by my prayers, and asked how come I wasn't with the others at the beach. And all I could think of saying was that I couldn't bring myself to say it was to be with you, Oliver, with or without my bathing suit, to be with you on my bed, in your bed, which is my bed during the other months of the year. Do with me what you want, take me, just ask if I want to and see the answer you'll get. And just don't let me say no. Oh. Cannot have better not be a dream, because the words that came to me as I pressed my eyes shut were, this is like coming home after years away among Trojans and Lestronians, like coming home to a place where everyone is like you, where people know, they just know, coming home as when everything falls into place and you suddenly realize that for 17 years all you'd been doing was fiddling with the wrong combination. Oh, kill me now. And then it's the scene, I'm up to this part now, where he massages his shoulder and yeah. He gets concerned, taken aback. He apologized and asked if he had pressed a nerve or something. He hadn't meant to hurt me. He must have felt thoroughly mortified if he'd expected that. What I hoped he hadn't noticed in my overreaction to his grip was something else. Before shrinking off his arm, I knew I had yielded it to his hand and had almost leaned into it, as if to say, as I'd heard adults often say when someone happened to massage their shoulders while passing them, don't stop. Had he noticed that I was ready not to yield but mold into his body? This was the feeling I took to my diary that night as well. I called it swoon. Why had I swooned? And could it happen so easily? Just let him touch me somewhere and I'd go totally limp and willless? Why wouldn't I show him how like butter I was? Because I was afraid of what might happen then. Or I was afraid he would have laughed at me, told everyone, or ignored the whole thing on the pretext I was too young to know what I was doing. Oh my god. Elio, you're killing me with your narration, mate. I could have denied so many things that I longed to touch his knees and wrists when they glistened in the sun with that visible sheen I've seen in so very few. And he goes on to list a few things. All this I could have denied and believed my denials. And perhaps this is why he wasn't ill at ease with being Jewish and didn't constantly have to pick at it, the way children pick at scabs they wish would go away. He was okay with being Jewish. He was okay with himself, the way he was okay with his body, with his looks, with his antique backhand, with his choice of books, music, films and friends. He was okay with using his prize Mont Blanc pen. I can buy another one just like it. I really like how he writes this Andre Acumen. I don't know. It's just the way his narration is. Where is it? We had just left the dinner table when my father, as was his habit these days, had been urging me to try and go out with friends more often, especially in the evening. It bordered on a lecture. Oliver was still new with us and knew no one in town, so I must have seemed as good a movie partner as any. But he asked the question in far too breezy and spontaneous a manner, as though he wanted me and everyone else in the living room to know that he was hardly invested in going to the movies, and could just as readily stay home and go over his manuscript. The carefree inflection of his offer, however, was also a wink aimed at my father. He was only pretending to have come up with the idea. In fact, without letting me suspect it, he was picking up on my father's advice at the dinner table and was offering to go for my benefit alone. I smiled, not at the offer, but at the double-edged maneuver. He immediately caught my smile, and having caught it, smiled back, almost in self-mockery, sensing that if he gave any sign of guessing I'd seen through his ruse, he'd be confirming his guilt, but that refusing to own up to it after I'd made clear I'd intercepted it would indict him even more. So he smiled to confess he'd been caught, but also to show he was good enough sport to own up to it and still enjoy going to the movies together. The whole thing thrilled me. Or perhaps his smile was a way of countering my reading tit for tat with the unstated suggestion that, much as he'd been caught trying to affect total casualness on the face of his offer, he too had found something to smile about in me, namely the shrewd, devious, guilty pleasure I derived in finding so many imperceptible affinities between us. There may have been nothing there, and I might have invented the whole thing, but both of us knew what the other had seen that evening as we barked into the movie theatre. I was, and I didn't care to hide it, writing on air. Page 24 and 25. Fuck me out. Fuck. Killing me. Elio, yes, what are you doing? Reading? No, you're not. Thinking then about what? I was dying to tell him. Private, I replied. So you won't tell me? So I won't tell you. So he won't tell me, he repeated pensively as if explaining to someone about me. How I loved the way he repeated what I myself had just repeated. It made me think of a caress or of a gesture which happens to be totally accidental the first time, but becomes intentional the second, and more so yet the third. I'm not telling, I said, then I'm going back to sleep, he'd say. My heart was racing. He must have known. Hey friends, new day, same clothes. I'm just about to start continuing to read Call Me By Your Name. Listen to this, just listen to this drivel. Does it make any sense to you? Not to me. Maybe it did when you wrote it, I said. That's the kindest thing anyone said to me in months, spoken so earnestly as if he was hit by a sudden revelation and was taking what it said to me much more than I thought it did. Kind? Yes, kind. How I loved it when he broke the silence between us to say something, anything, or to ask what I thought about X or had I ever heard of Y. No one in our household ever asked my opinion about anything. If he hadn't figured it out why, he would soon enough. It was only a matter of time before he fell in with everyone else's view and that I was the baby of the family. He asked about some Arthania's Giuseppe and Paul. I'm almost a decade older than you, and until a few days ago, I had never heard of them. I don't get it. What's not to get? Dad's a university professor, a girl without TV, get it now? Go back to your plunking, will you? I even liked the way he told me off. I accidentally tipped over my glass. It fell on the grass. It didn't break. Oliver, who was close by, got up and picked it up. You didn't have to, I finally said. He let it just enough time go by for me to register that his answer might not be casual or carefree. I wanted to. He wanted to, I thought. I wanted to. I imagined him repeating kind, complacent, effusive as he was when the mood would suddenly strike him. This book is killing me. I'm only 30 pages in. All these are forever impressed on the mornings when all I prayed for was time to stop. Let summer never end. Let him never go away. Let the music on perpetual replay play forever. I'm asking for very little, and I swear I'll ask for nothing more. The word friendship came to mind, but friendship, as defined by everyone, was alien fallow stuff I cared nothing for. What I may have wanted instead, from the moment he stepped out of the cab to our farewell in Rome, was what all humans ask of one another, what makes life livable. It would have to come from him first, then possibly from me. There is a law somewhere that says that when one person is thoroughly smitten with the other person must unavoidably be smitten as well. Love which exempts no one who's loved from loving. Just wait and be hopeful. What I would have settled for was not his friendship, not anything. Just to look up and find him there, suntan lotion, straw hat, red bathing suit, lemonade. To look up and find you there, Oliver. For the day will come soon enough when I'll look up and you'll no longer be there. He had, it took me a while to realise, 4 personalities depending on which bathing suit he was wearing. Knowing which to expect gave me the illusion of a slight advantage. Red, bold, set in his ways, very grown up, almost gruff and ill-tempered. Stay away. Yellow, sprightly, buoyant, funny, not without barbs. Don't give in too easily, might turn into red in no time. Green, which he seldom wore. Acquiescent, eager to learn, eager to speak. Sunny, why wasn't he always like this? Blue, the afternoon he stepped into my room from the balcony, the day he massaged my shoulder, or when he picked up my glass and placed it next to me. Today was red. He was hasty, determined, snappy. My father would ask him to climb a ladder with a basket and pick those fruits that were almost blushing with shame, she said. He would joke in Italian, pick one out, and ask, "Is this one blushing with shame?" "No," she would say, "this one is still too young. This one is too young still. Youth has no shame. Shame comes with age." He threw me a very large one saying, "Yours," in just the same way he'd throw a tennis ball across the court saying, "Your serve." Of course, he had no idea what I'd been thinking minutes earlier. That the apricot reminded me of how his body had stretched across the boat of the trees. Echoing the colour and the shape of the fruit. Touching the apricot was like touching him. He would never know, just as the people we buy the newspaper from and then vendors us about all night have no idea that this particular inflection on their face or the tan along their exposed shoulder will give us no end of pleasure when we're alone. Because everyone liked him, I had to say I liked him too. I was like men who openly declare other men irresistibly handsome, the better to conceal that they're aching to embrace them. To withhold universal approval would simply alert others that I had concealed motives for needing to resist him. "Oh, I like him very much," I said during his first 10 days when my father asked what I thought of him. I had used words intentionally compromising because I knew no one would suspect the false bottom in the arcane palette of shadings I applied to everything I said about him. No one took him to bed every night, and on spotting him in the morning lying in his heaven by the pool, smiled at him and watched the smile come to his lips. Not knowing whether he'd show up at the dinner table was torture, but bearable. Not daring to ask whether he'd be there was the real ordeal. Having my heart jump when I suddenly heard his voice or saw him seated at his seat when I'd almost given up hoping he'd be among us tonight. Seeing him and thinking he'd join us for dinner tonight, only to hear his peremptory esco, taught me there are certain wishes that must be clipped like wings of flattering butterfly. I wanted him gone from our house so as to be done with him. I wanted him dead soon so that I could stop thinking about him and worrying about when the next time I'd see him. At least his death would put an end to it. I wanted to kill him myself even, so as to let him know how this how much his mere existence had become to bother me, how unbearable his ease with everything and everyone, taking all things in his stride, his tireless "I'm okay with this and that," his springing across the gates of the beach when everyone else opened the latch first. To say nothing of his bathing suits, his spot in paradise, his cheeky later, his lip-smacking love for apricot juice. What I didn't realise was that wanting to test desire is nothing more than a ruse to get what we want without admitting that we want it. Was he my home then? My homecoming? You're my homecoming. When I'm with you and we're well together, there is nothing more I want. You make me like who I am, who I become when you're with me, Oliver. If there is any truth in the world, it lies when I'm with you. And if I find the courage to speak my truth to you one day, remind me to light a candle in thanksgiving to every altar in Rome. It never occurred to me that if one word from him could make me so happy, another could just as easily crush me. That if I didn't want to be unhappy, I should learn to be aware of such small joys as well. Try again later. This was what people who were okay with themselves did. He was criticizing me or making fun of me or seeing through me. It stung me when he finally came out with it. Only someone who had completely figured me out would have said it. If not later, when? Try again later were the last words I'd spoken to myself every night when I'd sworn to do something to bring Oliver closer to me. Try again later meant I haven't the courage now. Things weren't ready just yet. Where I'd find the will and the courage to try again later I didn't know, but resolving to do something rather than sit passively made me feel that I was already doing something, like reaping a profit on money I hadn't invested, much less earned yet. But I also knew that I was circling wagons around my life with try again laters, and that months, seasons, entire years, a lifetime could go by with nothing but saying try again later stamped on every day. Try again later were for people like Oliver. If not later, when was my shibboleth? Shibboleth? What do you mean wrong track? I'm not interested. Everyone's is interested. Well, maybe, but not me. But I saw you two. What you saw was not your business to see. Anyway, I'm not playing this game with either her or you. Look, I'm sorry. Maybe you should try, he threw in. She wouldn't want to have anything to do with me. Would you want her to? No? Are you sure? What would you know? I know you like her. You have no idea what I like, I snapped. No idea. A more canny observer, however, would have considered it a lead-in to an entirely different truth. Push open the door at your own peril. Believe me, you don't want to hear this. Maybe you should go away now while there's still time. No, better he should never know. I could live with that. I could always live with that. It didn't even surprise me to see how easy it was to accept. My father always wondered what I did with my time. Why I was always alone. My mother urging me to make new friends if the old ones didn't interest me. But above all, stop hanging around the house all the time. Books, books, books. Always books. And these school books. Both of them begging me to play more tennis, go dancing more often. Get to know people, find out for myself why others are so necessary in my life and not just foreign bodies to be sidled up to. I didn't know what I was afraid of, nor why I worried so much, nor why this thing that could so easily cause panic felt like hope sometimes, and like hope in the darkest moments brought such joy, unreal joy, joy with a noose tied around it. The thud my heart gave when I saw him unannounced both terrified and thrilled me. I was always afraid when he showed up, afraid when he failed to, afraid when he looked at me, more frightened yet when he didn't. The agony wore me out in the end, and on scalding afternoons I'd simply give out and fall asleep on the living room sofa. And those still dreaming know exactly who was in the room, who tiptoed in and out, who was standing there, who was looking at me and for how long, who was trying to pick out today's papers while making the least rustling sound. I knew they didn't suspect a thing, and it bothered me, though I wouldn't have wanted it otherwise. It told me that if I were no longer transparent and could disguise so much of my life, Then I was finally safe from them and from him. But at what price? And did I want to be so safe from anyone? Tell Oliver. There is no one else to tell Oliver, so I'm afraid it's going to have to be you. While reading in my father's diary one evening, I came upon the story of a handsome young knight who was madly in love with a princess. She too was in love with him, though she seems not to be entirely aware of it, and despite the friendship that blossomed between them, or perhaps because of that very friendship, he finds himself so humble and speechless, owing to her forbidding hand, that he is totally unable to bring up the subject of his love. One day he asked her point blank, "Is it better to speak or die?" I'd never have the courage to ask such a question. But what I'd spoken into his pillow revealed to me that, at least for a moment, I'd rehearsed the truth, gotten it out into the open, the fact that I had enjoyed speaking it, and that if he happened to pass by at that very moment I was muttering things, I wouldn't have dared to speak to my own face in the mirror. I wouldn't have cared, I wouldn't have minded. Let him know, let him see, let him pass judgment too if he wants. Just don't tell the world, even if you're the whole world for me right now. Even if your eyes stands a horrible, scornful world. That silly look of yours, Oliver. I'd rather die than face it once I've told you. It seemed clear that after Chiara, there had been a succession of cotte, crushes, mini crushes, one-night flings, who knows. To me, it all went down to only one thing. His cock had been everywhere in B. You saucy little minx. Or our being and having thoroughly inaccurate verbs in the twisted skein of desire. We're having someone's body to touch, and being that someone we're longing to touch are one and the same, just opposite banks on a river that passes from us to them, back to us, to them again, in this perpetual circuit where the chambers of the heart, like the trapdoors of desire and the wormholes of time, and the false bottom drawer we call identity, share a belonging logic according to which the shortest distance between real life and the life unlived, between who we are and what we want, is a twisted staircase designed with the imperious cruelty of M.C. Escher. Who the fuck's that? I don't know. I know nothing, Oliver. Nothing. Just nothing. You know more than anyone around here. If only you knew how little I know about the things that really matter. What things that matter? You know what things. By now you, of all people, should know. Silence. Why are you telling me this? Because I thought you should know. Because you thought I should know. Because I want you to know. Because there is no one else I can say it to but you. There, I had said it. Was I making any sense? Do you know what you're saying? This time I looked out to the sea in with a vague and weary tone that was my last diversion, my last cover, my last getaway. Yes, I know what I'm saying, and you're not mistaking any of it. I'm just not very good at speaking, but you're welcome to never speak to me again. Wait, are you saying what I think you're saying? Yes. And now that I had spilled the beans, I could take on the laid-back, mildly exasperated air with which a felon who surrendered to the police confesses yet one more police officer how he robbed the store. Wait for me here. I have to run upstairs and get some papers. Don't go away. I looked at him with a confiding smile. You know very well I'm not going anywhere. If that's not another admission, then I don't know what is, I thought. Thought raced through my mind. Would my descendants know what was spoken on this very piazetta today? Would anyone, or would it dissolve into thin air, as I found a part of me wishing it would? Would they know how close to the brink their fate stood on this day? The thought amused me and gave me the necessary distance to face the remainder of this day. In 30, 40 years, I'll come back here and think on a conversation I knew I'd never forget, as much as I might want to someday. I'd come here with my wife and my children, show them the sights, point to the bay, the local cafes, or dancing, the Grand Hotel. Then I'd stand here and ask the statue in the straw-backed chairs and shaky wooden tables to remind me of someone called Oliver. Wish I hadn't spoken, I finally said. I knew as soon as I said it that I'd broken the exiguous spell between us. I'm going to pretend you never did. Well, that was an approach I'd never seen coming from a man who was so okay with the world. I'd never heard such a sentence used in our house. Does this mean we're on speaking terms, but not really? He thought about it. Look, We can't talk about such things. We really can't. I told him to follow me. I'd show him a spot most tourists and strangers had never seen. If you have time, I added, not wishing to be pushy this time. I have time. Sorry about the noise in the background. My pop's basically deaf, so that's why the music's so loud. This is the spot when Monet came to paint. This is my spot, or mine. I come here to read. I can't tell you the number of books I've read here. Do you like being alone, he asked. No. No one likes being alone, but I've learned how to live with it. Are you always so very wise, he asked. I'm not wise at all. I told you, I know nothing. I know books and I know how to string words together. It doesn't mean I know how to speak about the things that matter most to me. But you're doing it now, in a way. Yes, in a way. That's how I always say things, in a way. It never occurred to me that I had brought him here, not just to show him my little world, but to ask my little world to let him in, so that the place where I came to be alone on summer afternoons would get to know him, judge him, and see if he fitted in. Take him in so that I might come back here and remember. I like the way you say things. Why are you always putting yourself down? I shrugged my shoulders. Was he criticizing me for criticizing myself? I don't know. So you weren't, I suppose. Are you always so scared of what others think? I shook my head, but I didn't know how to answer. Or perhaps the answer was so obvious that I didn't have to answer. It was moments such as these that left me feeling so vulnerable, so naked. Push me, make me nervous, and unless I push you back, you've already found me out. No, I had nothing to say in reply. I guess I'm gonna read you guys this whole page. It's killing me. He was waiting for me to say something. He was staring at me. This, I think, is the first glance I dared myself to stare back at him. Usually I'd cast a glance and then look away because I didn't want to swim in the lovely clear pool of his eyes, unless I'd been invited to. And I never waited long enough to know whether I was wanted there. Look away because I was too scared to stare anyone back. Look away because I didn't want to give anything away. Look away because I couldn't acknowledge how much he mattered. Look away because that silly gaze of his always reminded me of how tall he stood and how far below him I ranked. Now, in the silence of the moment, I stared back, not to defy him or to show I wasn't shy any longer, but to surrender, to tell him that this is who I am, this is who you are, this is what I want. There is nothing but truth between us now, and where there's truth there are no barriers, no shifty glances, and if nothing comes of this, let it be said that either of us was unaware of what might happen. I hadn't a hope left, and maybe I stared back because there wasn't a thing to lose now. I stared back with the all-knowing, I dare to kiss me gaze of someone who both challenges and flees with one and the same gesture. You're making things very difficult for me. Was he, by any chance, referring to our staring? I didn't back down, neither did he. Yes, he was referring to our staring. Why am I making things difficult? My heart was beating too fast for me to speak coherently. I wasn't even ashamed of showing how flustered I was. So I let him know. Because it would be very wrong. Would? I asked. Was there a ray of hope then? He sat down on the grass and then lay on his back, his arms under his head, as he stared at the sky. Yes, would. I'm not going to pretend this hasn't crossed my mind. I'd be the last to know. Well, it has. There. What did you think was going on? Nothing. Nothing, I repeated, as if it was vaguely beginning to hint at something so amorphous that it could easily just be shoved away by repeated nothing. I see. You've got it wrong, my friend. If it makes you feel any better, I have to hold back. It's time you learn to. The best I can do is pretend I don't care. That much we've known for a while already, he snapped right away. I was crushed. All these times when I thought I was slighting him by showing him how easy it was to ignore him in the garden, on the balcony, at the beach, he had been seeing right through me and taken my move for the peevish textbook gambit that it was. I think we should go. Not yet. We can't do this. I know myself. So far we've behaved. We've been good. Neither of us has done anything to feel ashamed of. Let's keep it that way. I want to be good. Don't be. I don't care. Who is to know? We'll never speak again, I said. Don't say that. I just know it. We'll chit-chat, that's all. And the funny thing is, I can live with that. You just rhymed. I love the way he'd flip on me. 2 hours later at lunch, I gave myself all the proof I needed that I would never be able to live with that. The stealth and stubbornness of his caress sent chills down my spine, and a sudden giddiness overtook me. No, I wasn't going to cry. This wasn't a panic attack. It wasn't a swoon, and I wasn't going to come in my shorts either, though I liked this very, very much, especially when the arch of his foot lay on top of my foot. Was it my fault, he asked. I'm a mess, aren't I? He smiled, said nothing. Sit for a second. He was visiting a hospitalized friend who was injured in a hunting accident. Are you going to be okay? I thought I was. I'll get over it. I'd heard too many characters say the same thing in too many novels. It let the runaway lover off the hook. It allowed everyone to save face. It restored dignity and courage to the one whose cover had been completely blown down. On his way out, he said, I'll stick around, the way people might say, I'll leave the light on for you. Be good. But it was nonsense like this that brought tears now. Tears I wished to drown in his pillow, soak in his bathing suit. Tears I wanted to touch him with the tip of his tongue and make sorrow go away. I didn't understand why he had brought his foot on mine. Was it a pass or a well-meaning gesture of solidarity and comradeship? Like his chummy hug massage, a light-hearted nudge between two lovers who are no longer sleeping together but have decided to remain friends and occasionally go to the movies? Did it mean, I haven't forgotten, it'll always remain between us even though nothing will come of it? How well spoken Elio was. And then he goes, this was not a dessert she was familiar with, but she was going to let me have my way in her kitchen without interfering, as if humouring someone who had been hurt enough already. The bitch knew. She must have seen the foot. Her eyes followed me every step of the way as if she was ready to pounce on my knife before I slit my veins with it. The bitch knew. Do you know where Oliver is? I don't know. I thought he went fishing with Anchisi. He's crazy. He almost got killed last time. You like him, don't you? Yes. He likes you too. More than you do, I think. Was this her impression? No, it was Oliver's. When had he told her? A while ago. It corresponded to the time when we had almost stopped speaking to each other. I think he is right. Without looking at her, I knew her eyes were scanning my face to pounce on mine and make eye contact, which is why I avoided lifting my eyes from my Semifredo, which I loved and which she knew I loved and had placed there for me because, despite the chiding look on her face that was stalking my every glance, she knew I knew she felt sorry for me. I know myself, he says. I heard him use these very same words before. They meant I'm dying to, but may not be able to hold back once I start, so I'd rather not start. What a plum to tell someone you can't touch him because you know yourself. Let us cuddle up, you and I, when the night is spread out against the sky, and read stories of restless people who always end up alone and hate being alone because it's always themselves they can't stand to be alone with. Traitor, I thought as I waited to hear his bedroom door squeak open and squeak shut. Traitor, how easily we forget. I'll stick around. Sure, liar. I heard the bathroom door click shut. If he ran the shower, it meant he'd had sex. I heard the bathtub and then the shower run. Traitor, traitor. And he has his little dream. Oh. I'll pick it up for you if you want. It was just that I was hoping we'd go together. You mean like the other day, he added, as though to help me say what I couldn't bring myself to say, but making things no easier by pretending to have forgotten the exact day. I think we'll never do anything like that again. I was trying to sound noble and grave in my defeat. But yes, like that. I could be vague too. That I, an extremely shy boy, found the courage to say such things could come from one place only, from a dream. That day belongs to a different time warp. We should learn to leave sleeping dogs. Oliver listened. The voice of wisdom is your most winning trait. He had lifted his eyes from his pad and was staring at me straight in the face, which made me feel terribly uneasy. Do you like me that much, Elio? Do I like you? I wanted to sound incredulous. I asked a question how he could ever have doubted such a thing, but then I thought better of it and was on the point of softening the tone of my answer with a meaningfully evasive perhaps that was supposed to mean absolutely. When I let my tongue loose, do I like you, Oliver? I worship you. There, I'd said it. I wanted the word to startle him and come like a slap in the face so that it might be instantly followed with the most languorous caress. I'll go of you to be, he said, but no speeches, nothing, not a word. Perhaps in looking the other way and knowing we had looked the other way to avoid speeches, we might have found a reason to smile at each other. For I'm sure he knew I was avoiding all mention of Monet's burn, and that this avoidance, which gave every indication of drawing us apart, was instead a perfectly synchronized moment of intimacy, which neither of us wished to dispel. This too is in the picture book, I might have said, but bit my tongue instead. No speeches. But if on our rides together the following morning he were to ask, then I'd spill everything. But also because I didn't want to test the invisible tripwire between us. What tripwire are you talking about? The tripwire which one night, if my dream is too powerful, if I've had more wine than usual, I could easily cross, then push open your glass door and say, Oliver, it's me, I can't sleep. Let me save you. That tripwire. I like this quote, although I don't think it's entirely true for me. Do you really like to read that much? I looked at her as if she had asked me if I liked music or bread or salted butter or ripe fruit in the summertime. Don't get me wrong, I like to read too, but I don't tell anyone. People who read are hiders. They hide who they are. People who don't always like who they are. Do you hide who you are? Sometimes, don't you? Do I suppose. I don't think, for me personally, I don't hide through reading. I like who I am, finally, but I think I escape. What else would I be doing today, I guess, instead of reading this book? I think people who like to read, really do it for many reasons. I just like to read in general, but I think I like to escape. I definitely don't think I hide who I am, though, or hide through reading. But I think all of us hide who we are in some way or another. It's like when you post things on social media, you're not going to post every single asset of your life, and in some cases I guess that does mean you're hiding who you are. But anyway, going off on a tangent here. I do like that quote, but I don't necessarily agree with it. I loved her simplicity, her candour. It was in every word she'd spoken to me that night, untrammeled, frank, human, and in the way her hips responded to mine now, without inhibition, without exaggeration, as though the connection between lips and hips in her body was fluid and instantaneous. A kiss on the mouth was not a prelude to a more comprehensive contact. It was already contact in its totality. I tore out a sheet of paper from a school notebook. Please don't avoid me. Then I rewrote it. Please don't avoid me, it kills me. Which I rewrote. Your silence is killing me. Way over the top. Can't stand thinking you hate me. Too plangent. No, make it less, oh Jesus, lachrymose. But keep the trite death speech. I'd sooner die than know you hate me. At the last minute, I came back to the original. Can't stand the silence. I need to speak to you. Grow up. I'll see you at midnight. What had I been thinking this morning when I'd slipped him my note? And yet another part of me knew that if he showed up tonight and I disliked the start of whatever he was in store for me, I'd still go through with it. Go with it all the way, because better to find out once and for all than to spend the rest of the summer, or my life perhaps, arguing with my body. I made a decision in cold blood, and if he asked, I'd tell him, I'm not sure I want to go ahead with this, but I need to know, and better with you than anyone else. I want to know your body, I want to know how you feel, I want to know you, and through you, me. On my way up the staircase, I tried to imagine myself coming down this very same staircase tomorrow. by when I might be someone else. Did I even like this someone else whom I didn't yet know and who might not want to say good morning then, or have anything to do with me for having brought him to this pass? Would I remain the exact same person walking up this staircase with nothing about me changed and no, not one of my doubts resolved? I'm so glad you came, he said. I could hear you moving in your room for a while. I thought you were getting ready to go to bed and had changed your mind. Me? Changed my mind? Of course I was coming. Not knowing what else to do or say, I muttered, I'm nervous. Me too. Me more than you. He tried to smile away the awkwardness between us and passed me the reefer. I'm just about to go out with my friend for a few hours because I haven't seen her since I've been back from seeing Erin now. So I'm actually met over the halfway point now, not by much, but I'm gonna make sure I finish this tonight and then watch the movie no matter how late I get home. But I'm loving this so much. Hey friends, so I just got back from having dinner. We had Macca's at a WAF, which is what we always do, me and this friend, which wasn't on the agenda, but I haven't seen my friend for about a week or so. So I wanted to catch up with her. Now, I got over halfway through today. I don't have to go to work tomorrow so that I can sleep in all I want. So I'm going to finish this no matter what. And then I'm going to watch the movie. So I most likely will be up until like 1 or 2 this morning. So I'll keep you guys posted. And then if I do all that, I'll probably film like a review / discussion. I don't know. It might just be a part of the reading vlog about my thoughts on the movie, but I love the movie already, so it's, yeah. Anyway. I just love Elio. Like, he's like, I know it's the writer, like how he writes it's so funny, but like, just what he's saying is hilarious. Hang on, where is it? I'm just tagging it. I should have done this before I fucking turn the camera on. Where is it? He was sitting on the bed with his legs crossed. He looked smaller, younger. I was standing awkwardly at the foot of the bed, not knowing what to do with my hands. He must have seen me struggling to keep them on my hips and then put them in my pockets and then back to my hips again. I looked ridiculous, I thought. This and the would-be hug I'd suppressed and which I kept holding, hoping he hadn't noticed. I felt like a child left alone for the first time with his homeroom teacher. Come, sit. Did he mean on the chair or on the bed? Hesitantly, I crawled onto the bed and sat facing him, cross-legged like him, as though this were the accepted protocol among men who meet at midnight. Nervous or not nervous, I no longer care to cross-examine every one of my impulses. If I'm stupid, let me be stupid. If I touch his knee, so I'll touch his knee. If I want to hug, I'll hug. I looked at the bed. I could see it clearly now. This was where I'd spent so many nights dreaming of just such a moment. Now is he. In a few weeks, I'll be back here in this very same bed. I turned on my Oxford nightlight and remember standing outside of the balcony, having caught the rustle of his feet scrambling to find his slippers. I wondered whether I would look back with sorrow or shame or indifference, I hoped. You okay? Me okay. I just read up to the part where they get together for the first time and Elio's so sad. I don't understand. I don't know. Anyway, I'll read some parts I tagged. But it just makes me sad. Because I feel like he did really have a great time and he loved it. But now I'm like, do you feel ashamed because that's what you think you should be feeling? Because you enjoyed it? Or did you actually not enjoy it? He's talking about how he touches their toes together. What are you doing? Nothing. That's a start, he finally said. The less we spoke, the more unrestrained our movements. I liked hugging him. Does this make you happy, he asked. I nodded, hoping once again that he'd fill my head, nodding without the need for words. He lifted my face with both hands and stared at me as we had done that day on the berm. This time even more intensely because both of us knew we'd already crossed the bar. Can I kiss you? What a question coming after our kiss on the berm. call me by your name and not call you by mine, which I'd never done in my life before, and which, as soon as I said my own name as though it were his, it took me to a realm I'd never shared with anyone in my life before or since. Why was he staring at me? Had he guessed what I was feeling? You're not happy. I shrugged my shoulders. It was not, I think it is just what he thinks he should be feeling, or like what he's been conditioned to think. I don't know. It was not him I hated, but the thing we'd done. I didn't want him looking into my heart just yet. You're feeling sick about it, aren't you? Again, I shrugged the comment away. I knew we shouldn't have, I knew it, he repeated. We should have talks. Maybe. Of all the things I could have uttered that morning, this insignificant maybe was the cruelest. Did you hate it? No, I didn't hate it at all. But what I felt was worse than hate. You can go to sleep if you want, he said, perhaps the kindest words he'd ever spoken to me. A hand on my shoulder while I, Judas-like, kept saying to myself, if only he knew. If only he knew I wanted to be leagues and a lifetime away from him. So I've read a bit on, and I think it is, he just feels like he's meant, like, I don't think he doesn't feel this way, but I think he is torn by liking what happened, but also feeling like it's wrong because of what he's being conditioned to think, or because of the time, you know. Are you okay? Fine, I'm fine. Are you okay everywhere? I know what you meant, so. But did you mind when I... Do we need to speak about it? I had used the same words that Marcia had uttered when I wished to know if she liked what I'd done to her. I wish we hadn't slept together. Even his body left me indifferent. Are you going to hold last night against me? No, I answered. But I had answered too swiftly for someone who meant what he was saying. He's talking about how they go back to the room and they have a good time. I think I was hard in no time. We'll save it for later, he said with a very wry smile on his face, and was instantly gone. Was this his revenge for presuming to be done with him? But there they went, my self-confidence and my checklist and my craving to be done with him. Great work. I think he still feels unsure and a bit shameful, but I think deep down he knows. Like, he liked it, and like just then he's like, I don't know. Whoever said the soul and the body met in the penal gland was a fool. It's the arsehole, stupid. Oh. Oliver, you know exactly what you're doing. Oh my god. When he came down for breakfast, he was wearing my bathing suit. No one would have given it another thought, since everyone was always swapping suits in our house. But this was the first time he had done so, and it was the same suit I had been wearing that dawn when we'd gone out for a swim. Watching him wearing my clothes was an unbearable turn on, and he knew it. He was not allowing me to forget him. God, I'm glad he's happy again. No one had ever worn my clothes. Perhaps the physical and metaphorical meanings are clumsy ways of understanding what happens when two beings need not just to be close, but to become so totally ductile that they each become the other. To be who I am because of you. To be who he was because of me. had to see you, I said as I rushed to him. Why, something wrong? I just had to see you. Aren't you sick of me? I thought I was about to say, and I wanted to be. I just wanted to be with you, I said. Then it hit me. I'll go back. If you want, I'll go back now, I said. He stood still, dropped his hand with a bundle of unsent letters still in it, shaking his head. Do you have any idea how glad I am we slept together? I shrugged my shoulders. I was unworthy of compliments, most of all coming from him. I don't know. It would be just like you not to know. I just don't want to regret any of it, including what you wouldn't let me talk about this morning. I just dread the thought of having messed you up. I don't want either of us to have to pay one way or another. I knew exactly what he was referring to, but pretended otherwise. I'm not telling anyone. There won't be any trouble. I didn't mean that. I'm sure we'll pay for it somehow, though. Yeah, I don't know if that's Oliver or Elio. Are you sorry? Okay. I'd hold you and kiss you if I could. Me too. I came up to his ear, and as he was just about to enter the post office, and whispered, "Fuck me, Elio." Then, to tease him with the very same words he'd uttered earlier this morning, I said, "We'll save it for later." Then I told him later would always remind me of him. He laughed and said later, meaning exactly what I wanted it to mean for a change. Not just goodbye or be off with you, but afternoon lovemaking. I turned around and was instantly on my bike, spinning my way back downhill smilingly, boldly, almost singing if I could. Never in my life had I been so happy. Page 148. Sorry, 147 to 148. Elio. But then when Oliver comes in, Watched put the peach in his mouth and slowly began to eat it, staring at me so intensely that I thought even love making didn't go so far. I could tell he was tasting it at this very instant. Something that was mine in his mouth, more his than mine now. I didn't know what happened to me at that moment as I kept staring at him, but suddenly I had a fierce urge to cry, and rather than fight it, as with orgasm, I simply let myself go, if only to show him something equally private about me as well. I reached for him and muffled my sobs against his shoulder. I was crying because no stranger had ever been so kind or gone so far for me. I was crying because I had never known so much gratitude, and there was no other way to show it. And I was crying for the evil thoughts I'd nursed against him this morning. And for last night as well, because for better or for worse, I'd never be able to undo it. And now was a good time as any to show him that he was right. This wasn't easy, that fun and games had a way of getting off course, and that if we rushed into things, it was too late to step back from them now. Crying because something was happening and I had no idea what it was. Whatever happens, Elio, I just want you to know. Don't ever say you didn't know. In the heat of a passion, it would have been one thing, but this was quite another. He was taking me away with him. His words made no sense, but I knew exactly what they meant. Last night's entry. I'll see you at midnight. You watch. You won't even be there. Get lost. That's what grow up means. I wish I'd never said anything. I was waiting for you, I said. I thought you'd gone to sleep. I even thought you didn't want to. No, waiting. I just turned the lights off. I bent down and kissed him on his neck. It was the first time I had kissed him with feeling, not just desire. Harmless if anyone saw. What were you doing? I asked, thinking about things, going back to the States, the courses I have to teach this fall, the book, you. Me? Me, who is mimicking my modesty. No one else. He was silent for a while. I come here every night and just sit here. Sometimes I spend hours. All by yourself? He nodded. I never knew. I thought. I know what you thought. The news couldn't have made me happier. This spot is probably what I'll miss the most. I have been happy in B. I was looking out towards there and thinking that in 2 weeks I'll be back at Columbia. He was right. I had made a point never to count the days. At first because I didn't want to think how long he'd stay with us. Later because I didn't want to face how few were his remaining days. All this means is that in 10 days when I look out to this spot, you won't be here. I don't know what I'll do then. At least you'll be somewhere else where there are no memories. He squeezed my shoulders to him. The way you think sometimes, you'll be fine. I might, but I might not. We wasted so many days, so many weeks. Wasted? I don't know. Perhaps we just needed time to figure out if this is what we wanted. Some of us made things purposefully difficult. Me, I nodded. You know what we were doing exactly one night ago. He smiled. I don't know how I feel about that. I'm not sure either, but I'm glad we did. Will you be okay? I'll be okay. I slipped a hand into his pants. I do love being here with you. It was my way of saying I've been happy here as well. I tried to picture what happy here meant to him. Happy once he got here. After imagining what the place might look like. Happy doing his work on the scorching mornings in heaven. Happy biking back and forth, etc., etc. One day he might tell me. I wondered what part I played in the overall happiness package. Better to keep a low profile. You should work on Hayden today. Later. Mazia called that morning while he was getting ready to leave. He almost winked when he handed me the phone. There was no hint of irony. Nothing that didn't remind me, unless I was mistaken, and I don't think I was, that what we had between us was total transparency that exists among friends only. Perhaps we were friends first and lovers second, but then perhaps this is what lovers are. I look back on those days and regret none of it. Not the risks, not the shame, not the total lack of foresight. I knew our minutes were numbered, but I didn't dare count them, just as I knew where all this was headed, but didn't care to read the mileposts. Suddenly I began to make mental snapshots of him, picked up the breadcrumbs that fell off our table and collected them for my hideaway, and to my shame drew lists: the rock, the berm, the bed, the sound of the ashtray. The rock, the berm, the bed. Instead, I squirreled away small things so that in the lean days ahead, glimmers from the past might bring back the warmth. I began reluctantly to steal from the present day to pay off debts I knew I'd incur in the future. You're only going for 2 to 3 days. Neither Oliver nor I had ever been precise about our last day together. Mother would never know how her 2 to 3 days cut me that morning. I was happy that my room would revert to me in his room. It would be easier to remember our nights. No, better to keep my current room. Then at least I could pretend he was still in his. And if he wasn't there, he was still out, as he so frequently used to be on those nights when I count the hours and minutes to seconds. He left the red bathing suit. I must tell you about this bathing suit, I said. Tell me what? I'll tell you on the train. Just promise to let me keep it after you're gone. That's all. Well, wear it a lot today, and don't swim in it. Sick and twisted and very, very sad. I've never seen you like this. I want Billowy too, and the aspirados and the sunglasses and you. Come to the store around 8:30. Bring your manuscript. There's a party for one of our authors. We had not planned on doing anything except go for dinner and wander the streets afterwards. Am I invited though? I asked, feeling a tad uncomfortable. You are now, he replied. I wanted no secrets, no screens, nothing between us. Or is intimacy the desired product no matter where you find it, how you acquire it, what you pay for it, black market, grey market, tax, untaxed, under the table, over the counter? All I knew was that I had nothing left to hide from him. I had never felt freer or safe in my life. We were alone together for 3 days and knew no one in the city. I could be anyone, say anything, do anything. I felt like a war prisoner who's suddenly been released by an invading army and told that he can start heading home now. No forms to fill out, no debriefing, no questions asked, no buses, no gate passes, no clean clothes to stand in line for. Just start walking. We showered, we wore each other's clothes, we wore each other's underwear. It was my idea. Smile and the world smiles back. Oliver, I'm happy, he said. He looked at me in wonderment. You're just horny. No, happy. That's not, my presence perhaps. I can take perfectly good care of myself if you prefer to go alone. It suddenly hit me that what was bothering him, I'll be the professor's son tagging along. That's not it at all, you goose. Then what is it? As we walked, he put an arm around my waist. I don't want anything to change or come between us tonight. Who's the goose? He took a long look at me. This is where it started. I said, what? That's why you wanted to come by here with you. I had already told him the story. I turned down so many. Never went after anyone. You went after me. You let me. I wish I had friends like girls like you. There'll be plenty of time for these friendships. Would friends save you from becoming dissoluto? The word kept coming back like an accusation of a deep and ugly fault in my character. I wish I had one friend I wasn't destined to lose. She looked at me with a pensive smile. You're speaking in volumes, my friend, and tonight we're doing short poems only. And another on my waist. Oh, I knew that other hand so well. May never let me go tonight. I worship every finger on that hand, every nail you bite on every one of your fingers, my dear, dear Oliver. Don't let me go yet, for I need that hand there. A shudder ran down my spine. As he read the long poem, I began thinking that, unlike him, I had always found a way to avoid counting the days. We were leaving in 3 days, and then whatever I had with Oliver was destined to go up in thin air. We had been talking about meeting in the States, and we had talked of writing and speaking by phone, but the whole thing had a mysteriously surreal quality kept intentionally opaque by both of us. Not because we wanted to allow events to catch us unprepared so that we might blame circumstances and not ourselves, but because by not planning to keep things alive, we were avoiding the prospect that they might ever die. Would I be able to live without his hand on my tummy or around my hips, without kissing and licking a wound on his hip that would take weeks to heal? But away from me now, whom else would I ever be able to call by my name? There would be others, of course, and others after others, but calling them by my name in a moment of passion would feel like a derived thrill, an affectation. Hey friends, it's 1 o'clock. I'm so close to finishing, but I want to watch the movie when I finish, and I'll probably finish in I don't know, I still have 50 pages, just under 50 pages to go, which means if I read around a page a minute, I'll still be reading for almost another hour, and then I won't watch the movie and finish the movie till 5 a.m, so I think it's bedtime, and I'll finish the book. I love how he kind of knows his father knows. I heard the clicks of both extension phones signaled that no one else was on the line. How tactful of my father. Did he have a good trip? Yes. Did he hate the meal? Yes. Did he think of me? I'll never forget Rome so long as I live. Me either. Wish we could start all over again in that room, I said, both leaning out the window in the evening, rubbing shoulders as we did in Rome. Every day of my life, I said. Every day of mine too. I took something from your room, he said. What? You'll never guess. What? Find out for yourself. And then I said, not because it was what I wanted to say to him, but because the silence was weighing on us, and this was the easiest thing to smuggle in during the pause, and at least I would have said it. I don't want to lose you. We would write. I'd call from the post office, more private that way. There was talk of Christmas of Thanksgiving even, yes, Christmas. But his world, which until then seemed no more distant from mine than the thickness of the skin Shiara had once pulled from his shoulders, had suddenly drifted light years away. By Christmas it might not matter. He goes up to see what Oliver's taken with him. And then I saw the unyellowed blank spot on the wall. Bless him. He had taken a framed antique postcard of Monet's Boom dating back to 1905 or so. The picture would remind Oliver of the morning when I first spoke out, or of the day when we rode by Boom pretending not to notice it, or the day that we'd decided to picnic there and had vowed not to touch each other. They're better to enjoy lying in bed together the same afternoon. I wanted him to have the picture before his eyes for all of time, his whole life, in front of his desk, his bed, everywhere. Now let everywhere you go, I thought. Oh my god, this conversation with his dad. Oh. Fuck me up. I'm just going to mark where it starts and then where it finishes. I can't even read the whole thing. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to read it out to you guys. It's just... oh, my heart. Okay. You two had a nice friendship. This was far bolder than anything I anticipated. Yes. You're too smart not to know how rare, how special what you two had was. Oliver was Oliver, I said, as if that summed things up. My father added, quoting Montague's all-encompassing explanation for his friendship with Tina de Botti. I was thinking of Emily Bronte's words because he's more myself than I am. Oliver may be very intelligent, I began. Intelligent. He was more than intelligent. What you two had everything and nothing to do with intelligence. He was good and you were both lucky to have found each other because you two were good. My father had never spoken of goodness this way before. It disarmed me. I think he was better than me, Papa. I'm sure he'd say the same about you, which flatters the both of you. He was about to tap his cigarette, and in leaning towards the ashtray, he reached out and touched my hand. What lies ahead is going to be very difficult, he started to say, altering his voice. His tone said, we don't have to speak about it, but let's not pretend we don't know what I'm saying. Fear not, it will come, at least I hope it does, and when you least expect it, nature has cunning ways of finding our weakest spot. Just remember, I am here. Right now, you may not want to feel anything, perhaps you never wish to feel anything, and perhaps it's not with me that you want to speak about these things, but feel something you did. Look, you had a beautiful friendship, maybe more than a friendship, and I envy you my place. Most parents would hope the whole thing goes away and pray that their sons land on their feet. But I am not such a parent. In your place, if there is pain, nurse it, and if there is a flame, don't snuff it out. Don't be brutal with it. Withdrawal can be a terrible thing when it keeps us awake at night, and watching others forget us sooner than we'd want to be forgotten is no better. We rip so much of ourselves to be cured of things faster than we should that we go bankrupt by the age of 30 and have less to offer each time we start with someone new. But to feel nothing so as not to feel anything, what a waste. I couldn't begin to take this all in. I was dumbstruck. Have I spoken out of turn? Then let me say one more thing. It will clear the air. I may have come close, but I never had what you had. Something always held me back or stood in the way. How you live your life is your business, but remember, our hearts and bodies are given to us only once. Most of us can't help but live as though we've got two lives to live. One is the mock-up and the other the finished version. And then there are all those versions in between. But there's only one, and before you know it, your heart is worn out, and and as for your body, there comes a point where no one wants to look at it as much. Much less wants to come near it. Right now there is sorrow. I don't envy the pain, but I envy you the pain. We said goodnight. On my way upstairs, I vowed to ask him about his life. We had all heard about his women when he was young, but I'd never even had an inkling of anything else. Was my father someone else? And if he was someone else, who was I? No! I knew this was gonna happen, but it's still sad. Want to talk? I was already in bed. He had a setter on. I must have... he sat on the edge of my bed looking as uneasy as I must have seemed that first time when the room used to be his. I might be getting married this spring, he said. I was dumbfounded, but he never said anything. Well, it's been on and off for more than 2 years. I think it's wonderful news, I said. People getting married was always wonderful news. I was happy for them. Marriages were good, and the broad smile on my face was genuine enough. Even if it occurred to me a while later that such news couldn't possibly bode well for us. Did I mind? He asked. You're being silly, I said. Will you be getting in bed now? I asked. He looked at me gingerly. For a short while, but I don't want to do anything. It sounded like an updated, far more polished version of later, maybe. So we were back to that, were we? How long do you think this will go on? He asked Riley. Not long, I hope. He kissed me on the mouth, but it wasn't the kiss after the Pasquino when he'd pressed me hard against the wall on Via Santa Maria della Mina. I recognized the taste instantly. I never realized how much I liked it or how long I'd missed it. One more item to log on the checklist of things I'd missed before losing him for good. I was about to get up from under the blankets. I can't do this, he said and sprang away. I can, I replied. Yes, but I can't. I must have had ice razor blades in my eyes, for he suddenly realized how angry I was. I'd love nothing better than to take your clothes off and at the very least hold you, but I can't. I put my arms around his head and held it. Maybe you shouldn't say they know about us, I figured, he said. How? By the way your father spoke. You're lucky. My father would have carted me off to a correctional facility. I looked at him. I want one more kiss. I could have seized him. This is making me so sad. Saying how, like, he wrote about when his friend Vimini died, and then he's saying how he's staying with his wife and his 2 kids at the house. You'll never guess who is staying. One summer, 9 years after his last letter, I received a phone call in the States from my parents. You'll never guess who is staying with us for 2 days in your old bedroom and standing right in front of me. I had already guessed, of course, but pretended I couldn't. The fact that you refused to say you've already guessed says a great deal, my father said with a snicker before saying goodbye. His father knows. There was a tussle between my parents over who was to hand the phone over. Finally, his voice came through. Elio, he said. I could hear my parents and voices of children in the background. No one could say my name that way. Elio, I repeated. To say it was I speaking, but also to spark our old game and show I had forgotten nothing. It's Oliver, he said. He had forgotten. They show me pictures. You haven't changed, he said. He spoke about his 2 boys who were right now playing in the living room with my mother, 8 and 6. I should meet his wife. I'm so happy to be here. You have no idea, no idea. It's the most beautiful spot in the world, I said, pretending to him for that he was happy because of the place. You can't understand how happy I am to be here. His words were breaking up. He passed the phone back to my mother, who before turning to me was still speaking to him with endearing words. He's all choked up, she finally said to me. I wish I could be with you all, I responded, getting all worked up myself over something I had almost entirely stopped thinking about. Time makes us sentimental, but perhaps in the end it is because of time that we suffer. Fuck me up. It just finished. Oh my god. For the last like 15 pages, I just read the finish and then I just tabbed, so I'm gonna go back and read parts, but I can't. I'm gonna die watching this fucking movie now. I'm gonna fucking bawl my eyes out. Anyway, I just, yeah, I think, I don't know, it's hard for me to let things go. Oh, I'm gonna get really emotional. So, reading this book about someone who never really let someone go was very hard. Like, I think the people who I struggle to let go of, I think I've let them go finally, but I definitely relate to, oh, fuck. I definitely can't understand his feelings at the end of this book, because even after 20 years he had never really let him go. Anyway, I'm gonna try and, without crying, read all the pages I've tabbed and then I'm gonna watch the movie and probably die. Alright, God help me, let's see if I can get through this without crying. So this is when he goes to see him in his college town and he says to come and have dinner. Come for a drink, come for dinner tonight to meet my wife. Please, 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 I'd love to. You don't understand, I'd love to, but I can't. The can't did not mean I wasn't free to visit him, that I couldn't bring myself to do it. He looked at me. You never did forgive me, did you? Forgive? There was nothing to forgive. If anything, I'm grateful for everything. I remember the good things only. I heard people say this in movies. They seem to believe it. All these years, whenever I thought of him, I'd think either of B or our last days in Rome, the whole thing leading up to two scenes. The balcony where its attendant agonies and via St. Mara Delamina, where he'd pushed me against the wall and kissed me, and in the end let me put one leg around his. Every time I go back to Rome, I go back to that spot. It is still alive for me, still resounds with something totally present, and as though a heart stolen from its hell by Poe still throbbed under the ancient slate pavement to remind me that here I had finally encountered under the ancient slate pavement to remind me that here I had finally encountered the life that was right for me but had failed to live. I could never think of him in New England when I lived in New England for a while and was separated from him by no more than 50 miles. I continue to imagine him as stuck in Italy somewhere, unreal and spectral. The truth is I'm not sure I can feel nothing, and if I'm to meet your family, I prefer not to feel anything. Perhaps it never went away. Was I speaking the truth, or was the moment tense and deliberate as it was, making me say things I never quite admitted to myself and could still not wager were entirely true? I don't think it went away, I repeated. Recognized it? He asked. On the wall was a framed, coloured reproduction of a poorly preserved fresco of bearded Mithraic figure each of us had bought on the morning of our visit to San Clement. I hadn't seen mine in ages. Next to it on the wall was a framed postcard of Monet's sperm. I recognised it immediately. Let's have a drink at my hotel. I felt his discomfort. I said a drink, not a fuck. He looked at me and literally blushed. I was staring at him. He was amazingly handsome still. No loss of hair, no fat. Still jogged every morning, he said. Skin still as smooth as then. Only a few sunspots on his hands. Sunspots, I thought. I couldn't put the thought away. What are these? I asked, pointing at his hand and then touching it. I have them all over. Sunspots. They broke my heart. I wanted to kiss each and every one away. Too much sun in my salad days. Besides, it shouldn't be so surprising. I'm getting on. In 3 years, my elder son will be as old as you were then. In fact, he's older to the person you were when we were together than you are the Elio I knew then. Talk about uncanny. Is that what you call it? When we were together, I thought. Oh, this part makes me so sad. So what you're really saying is you'll come only when you think you'll be too old to care. When my kids have left or when I'm a grandfather. And like the older men who sat at the pizzeria facing the Piave Memorial, we'll speak about 2 young men who found such happiness for a few weeks and lived the remainder of their lives dipping cotton swabs into the bowl of happiness, fearing they'd use it up, without daring to drink more than a thimble on ritual anniversaries. But this thing that almost never was still beckons. I wanted to tell him. They can never undo it, never unwrite it, never unlive it or relive it. It's just stuck there like a vision of fireflies on a summer field. Toward evening, that keeps saying, you could have had this instead. But going back is false, moving ahead is false, looking the other way is false. Try to redress it, all that is false turns out to be just as false. Their life is like a garbled echo buried for all time in a sealed mythric chamber. Your best moment, he finally interrupted. The first night is the one I remember best, perhaps because I fumbled so much. But also Rome. There is a spot via Santa Maria Rarara that I visit every time I'm in Rome. I'll stare at it for a second and suddenly it'll all come back to me. I had just thrown up that night and on the way back to the bar you kissed me. People kept walking by but I didn't care, nor did you. That kiss is still imprinted there, thank goodness. It's all I have from you. This in your shirt. He remembered. And you, I asked, what moment? Rome 2, singing together till dawn on Piazza Navona. Oh, I didn't tag this part. Can I ask you a question? Shoot. Would you start again if you could? I looked at him. Why are you asking? Because, just answer. Would I start again if I could? In a second. But I've had 2 of these and I'm about to order a 3rd. And he talks about how he doesn't want to find out he's dead through his son, sending him a postcard. And he said, Elio, you kill me. You are the only person I'd like to say goodbye to when I die. Because only then will this thing I call my life make any sense. And if I should hear that you died, my life as I know it, the me who is speaking with you now, will cease to exist. Sometimes I have this awful picture of waking up in our house in B and looking out to the sea, hearing the news from the waves themselves. He died last night. We missed out on so much. It was a coma. Tomorrow I go back to my coma and you to yours. Pardon. I didn't mean to offend. I'm sure yours is no coma. What did you write on the back of the postcard? It's going to be a surprise. I'm too old for surprises. Besides, surprises always come with a sharp edge that is meant to hurt. I don't want to be hurt, not by you. Just tell me, just 2 words. Let me guess, if not later, when? 2 words, I said. Besides, that would be cruel. I thought for a while. I give up. Corcordium, heart of hearts. I've never said anything truer in my life to anyone. I stared at him. It was good we were in a public place. He talks about how if he went back to his house and met his family. This is the man whose home I stayed in when I lived in Italy. and that they couldn't really care, the teenagers. Oh, and by the way, this man, who was almost your age back then, who spent most of his days quietly transcribing the 7 last words of Christ, each morning we would sneak into my room at night and we'd fuck our brains out. So shake hands and be nice. Ugh. In the weeks we'd been thrown together that summer, our lives had scarcely touched. But we had crossed to the other bank, where time stops and heaven reaches down to earth and gives us the ration of what is from our birth divinely ours. We looked the other way. We spoke about everything but we've always known, and not saying anything now confirms it all at once. We had found the stars, you and I. And this is given only once. This is given once only, sorry. Ugh. Fuck me up. Part of me might want him to realise that nothing had changed since he'd been here last. But another part of me wanted him to sense that there was no point trying to catch up now. We'd travelled and been through too much without each other for there to be any common ground between us. Perhaps I wanted him to feel the sting of loss and grief. But in the end, and by way of compromise, perhaps I decided the easiest way to show I'd forgotten. I decided that the easiest way was to show I'd forgotten none of it. I made a motion to make him the empty lung. Been there, done yet, he replied. It was his way of telling me he hadn't forgotten either. Are you happy you're back? He thought through my question before I did. Are you happy I'm back? He retorted. I looked at him, feeling quite disarmed, though not threatened. Like people who blush easily but aren't ashamed of it. I knew better than to stifle this feeling and let myself be swayed by it. You know I am, more than I ought to be, perhaps. Me too. That said it all. Did I have a spot? He asked with half a grin. You'll always have a spot. And he basically goes on to say that his spot is everywhere. For as long as the house stands, this will be your ghost spot, and mine too, I wanted to say. $20 was yesterday, and yesterday was just earlier this morning, and morning seemed light years away. I'm like you, he said. I remember everything. Fuck me dead. This fucking book. I stopped for a second. If you remember everything I wanted to say. Oh, fucking hell. And if you really like me, then before you leave tomorrow, or when you're just ready to shut the door of the taxi and have already said goodbye to everyone else, and there's not a thing left to say in this life, then just once turn to me, even in jest or as an afterthought, which would have meant everything when we were together. And as you did back then, look at my face, hold my gaze, and call me by your name. Oh, that one struck a chord. Fuck me up. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to cry so much now, but I definitely give this a 5 out of 5. Anything that makes me cry, anything that affects me this much, but even just like some of the quotes from this book that I put on my personal Instagram and my bookstagram, it's just, yeah, very good story. Very heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time, and I think it just strikes a chord, as I said, because, I don't know, I struggle to let things go. I don't think like I said, the things with all the people I was trying to let go, it didn't take me 20 years, but this book definitely struck a chord at the end with how Elio feels. with how I felt about people that are no longer in my life anymore. So, yeah. I knew this was gonna get to me. Yeah. I knew I was probably gonna cry reading this, but I'm glad I did. It was a very beautiful story. Anyway, I'm gonna watch the movie now. If you've read this, let me know what you thought. How did you think it compared to the movie? And I'm sure I'll come back and have a few words about the movie, but it's probably just going to be me either bawling my eyes out again or gushing at how great the movie is. So here we go. Fucking book. Yeah, if you read this book, let me know what you think. And if you watched the movie, what do you think? My heart is just massacred.